Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed we do. Washington just got very interesting. Whole showdown.
Very shutdown
Elon
Christmas.
Musk, potential government shutdown. What does Trump think? A lot going on. Jeff Stein's going to join us to break down all of the madness and try to figure out where we are and what might happen next to the best of any of our ability. We also have an update. So the House apparently secretly voted to release that Matt Gaetz ethics report. So we've got Matt Gaetz' response. Why did they do it? What do we expect to learn? Break all of that down for you. We also have a new healthcare whistleblower coming forward at the same time that Kathy Hochul is setting up a potential hotline for any CEOs who feel threatened out there. So a lot of response there. We've got some new details that have been revealed as part of a lawsuit against a bunch of elite universities, including some Ivy League universities, showing just how much preference they give to particularly wealthy and well-connected students. Some of these details are absolutely incredible. We also have some of the first numbers post-affirmative action of minority enrollment, how that's been impacted by the Supreme Court ending affirmative action at these schools, so that's interesting as well. And we've got some interesting comments on the Theo Von podcast from Timothy Chalamet about how Bernie Sanders is a folk hero. Interesting moment there.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
I listened to the entire thing. The game day Chalamet, that's not the real Chalamet, I've discovered. I had no idea Chalamet is a full-on theater kid from like the Upper East Side or whatever in New York.
Oh, really? I don't know anything about him.
He was on College Game Day, and he like had. By the way, I don't watch college football. All my football friends are telling me, they're like, "Oh my God, Chalamet was amazing. He made all of these correct picks." It's pretty clear somebody coached him about it, because then when he was on Theo Von, I was like, "Oh, this kid is like a full-on theater."
He's a Renaissance man.
Yeah, no. By the way,
he enjoy sports and theater, Saagar.
Don't
rein him in.
I don't think so.
Don't trim his sails.
Look, Chalamet. I'm just saying, I'm pretty sure that you were trained for that game day segment. And look, he's an incredible actor. He's one of my favorite actors in the up and coming generation.
So he could pull it off if he was coached on how to
absolutely no
play
question.
the part.
In my opinion, he was acting whenever he was on game day. Now, I will say he's still an interesting guy. He's a little soft-spoken and all of that, but I didn't know that much about him, about his background and everything. And he's like, yeah, I went to Columbia and I was a theater kid in New York. And I was like, oh, okay. That was interesting. Anyway, he is a better actor. He's definitely, who's that other young guy who's coming up right now? Elordi? He's a better actor than him, for sure. Women would probably disagree with me, but anyway. Let's get to Jeff Stein and let's talk about all of this government shutdown situation. Joining us now, Jeff Stein of the Washington Post, great friend of the show. Good to see you, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me back on, guys.
Absolutely. All right, so Jeff, let's break some of this down, man. It's been a wild turn of events. First, there was a continuing resolution that was a bipartisan deal. It was negotiated. Elon Musk takes to Twitter. He starts criticizing the deal. So does Vivek Ramaswamy. J.D. Vance, Donald Trump all start to jump in. And it appears that Elon's threat to primary those House individuals who did vote for the CR appears to have been at least contributed to its downfall. That's what Fox News is reporting, at least. Let's take a listen to that. We'll get your reaction.
Tweets from Musk and others, has that complicated this?
Well, I mean, I think that there's always a lot of interest in what's happening up here, and
this is more than interest. They're telling people if they vote yes, they should be voted out.
The social media world is a part of our politics, and I think members have to expect that. There are going to be a lot of hard votes in the next couple of years.
The fact is that, look, this is a sandwich. I don't know how else to say that. We're being forced into this position. They could have done a standalone. They did this because they knew that it would put members in this position to support it. We're damned if we do. We're damned if we don't.
Now, the bill has about $100 billion in disaster relief, nearly $30 billion to restock FEMA's coffers, and there are lots of health care provisions. Jamming everything together in one bill means some Republicans will not support Mike Johnson for Speaker in January.
Have any other of your colleagues said that they're not voting for Johnson? Any expressed?
Yeah, I've talked to a few, who don't seem like they're going to vote for him. You have to ask them. I'm not going to betray anybody's position.
Will you just vote president, or will you vote someone else's name?
I'll vote for somebody else.
So, Jeff, there's been they've been roiled on Capitol Hill. It's now Thursday morning while we're all talking. The government shuts down tomorrow at midnight. People thought that this deal was done. It was dusted. It was sailing to a vote. And yet now we're at a completely new reset. So tell us what you know.
Elon Musk is quite possibly the most powerful person in Washington. Donald Trump obviously is the source of his power, but Trump has a million things going on, and Musk seems really dialed in on these kinds of spending fights and has huge remit to sort of tell the Republican Party what to do on behalf of Trump. And it's the money for sure. I mean, as you were saying, Musk has been threatening primary challenges against Republicans who are out of step with what he and Trump want. But I think it's more than that. When I talk to Republican lawmakers, they like the idea of being retweeted by Musk, because as silly as that might sound as a reason for how to govern, they want to be in his sort of aura. They feel that he has sort of a popularity and a vision that they want to be associated with. Someone was like comparing it to high school to me, where Musk is like the cool kid and people want to be at his table, and no Republican wants to stand out of that mix if you want to have a political future. And it's more than just than that too. I mean, it's Musk is really sort of assuming control for the Trump administration, incoming Trump administration, over spending and regulation, which is a huge thing. I mean,
that's pretty much everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much everything. Exactly. And for members, right, if you want, this project for your district and your constituents, you kind of need Elon Musk at this point to be on your side. So the stakes for them are existential and go beyond even the fear of a Republican primary challenge. And, did voters in November, were they upset about high grocery prices, or did they want the world's richest man to have discretion over the federal budget? I mean, that seems to be the question that Democrats are trying to push this morning, but I think it's a legitimate one.
Yeah, we have some of that. A2, please, we can put on the screen just to give a taste of some of the Democratic reaction. So initially, you had Elon saying that we should shut down the government until January 20th. That'd be approximately 33 days. We then got some more reactions, if we continue here, with some of these images showing you, he says, any member of the House or the Senate who votes for this outrageous spending bill deserves to be voted out in 2 years. What's even more interesting, though, Jeff, is the plot twist that then Donald Trump has added. So can we put A3, please, up on the screen? Because this makes things even crazier. And this is from J.D. Vance, which was tweeted out as a statement from President-elect Trump and Vice President-elect Vance. They talk about the most foolish and inept thing ever done by congressional Republicans was allowing our country to hit the debt ceiling in 2025. It was a mistake and is now something that must be addressed. Meanwhile, Congress is considering another spending bill. The bill would make it easier to hide the records of the January 6th committee, which accomplished nothing. The bill would give Congress a pay increase while Americans are struggling this Christmas. Let's go to the next slide, please, because he says increasing the debt ceiling is not great, but we'd rather do it now on Biden's watch. So he continues, he says, Republicans must get smart and tough. If Democrats threaten to shut down the government unless we give them everything they want, call their bluff. It is Schumer and Biden who are holding up aid to our farmers and disaster relief. So now I think we have three separate things that are going on. There's a fight over the disaster relief. There's a fight over the $10 billion to farmers. And now Donald Trump is saying, no, Republicans, you don't even vote for a quote unquote clean CR. First, maybe explain what a clean CR is. You only do it if we also attach a raise to the debt ceiling. So that adds another layer of what must get done in the next 48 hours.
Yeah, I mean, we are facing a government shutdown. Musk seems to not be that alarmed by the prospect. I mean, the thing that I'm trying to figure out and calling sources, yesterday and today that I can't really wrap my head around is why did Johnson not call Elon and Trump and say, like, hey, man, like, here's my plan. Are you going to go nuclear on me in public and like embarrass me and potentially cost my speakership? And I want to be very careful about how I phrase this because I don't have this like fully confirmed. But the thing that lawmakers and aides on the Hill and some people close to Mar-a-Lago are telling me is that Johnson thought, maybe incorrectly, but he thought that Trump had his back.
Yes.
As you were saying, right, like the CR, right, is just the idea that we will basically just extend funding for the government without much attached. And that's how you get this idea And separately, you have this idea of an omnibus, which like you include a lot of different spending changes to the law. Now, for Hill speak that nobody but like 3 nerds in Washington should ever have to hear, they're calling it a cromnibus, which is the CR plus an omnibus. So that sort of reflects what Johnson was trying to do here. Because he knew he was going to lose a lot of Republicans, to get the spending bill done, he included a bunch of stuff that Democrats wanted. But the fact that that Johnson was unable to have a conversation with Elon, have a conversation with Trump, like, what are they talking about when they go to like the wrestling match and like hang out on the plane? Like,
you're exactly right. Like, they were literally together this weekend.
To me, and the fact that Trump is just so willing to say to Mike Johnson, who he's been photographed hanging out with all the time, like, no, like you eat shit now, dude. Like that's not like you're on your own is kind of breathtaking to me. I mean, it either suggests that Trump is just willing to like screw this guy who's been one of his most stalwart allies, or that Johnson is a spectacularly inept House Speaker who could not foresee the most obvious outcome from a mile away. I mean, I've been hearing from Trump people who wanted to kill this deal for a long time and thought that they could get Elon on board. Even the defense bill, they passed, a roughly $1 trillion annual defense bill, which I think you guys covered, $10 trillion in defense spending over the next decade, which Elon has talked about the DoD budget being too big. And this whole time I was watching that fight, I was like, where is Elon, right? Because he could have done to that bill what he did to this bill. Mm-hmm. It seems like maybe he just like wasn't paying attention enough to do that. But whatever the case, I mean, this is, it suggests that we're going to be in for a very complicated few years if the coordination problems this early between Republican leadership and Mar-a-Lago are this bad.
And some real power struggles ultimately between the richest man on the planet, who has his own base of support and plenty of wealth to throw around in terms of primary challenges, et cetera, and who controls Twitter, controls this huge social media platform and can use it to push whatever message he wants to push, which, has been in recent months the same message that Trump wants to push. But it really does set up this titanic clash of two power centers between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Let's put A4 up on the screen. We have some commentary from Trump specifically, which I want to get you to weigh in on what I just said about the power centers, but also I want to understand more why Trump is focused on the debt limit at this time as well. So this is from Truth Social. He says, if Republicans try to pass a clean continuing resolution without all of the Democrat bells and whistles, that will be so destructive to our country. All it will do after January 20th is bring the mess of the debt limit into the Trump administration rather than allowing it to take place in the Biden administration. Any Republican that would be so stupid as to do this should and will be primaried. Everything should be done and fully negotiated prior to my taking office on January 20th, 2025. I mean, this is deeply confusing to me because it seems like he's almost advocating for the CR that Elon just completely tanked. And obviously, this piece about the debt limit is very important to him. He keeps bringing it up. So why is that so significant? What do you make of this, whatever Donald Trump is trying to say here?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Trump is saying, right, obviously there's not to get too into Washington speak, but there's like two key things that, as you guys understand, right? There's the funding of the federal government, all the government services, and then there's a separate question about the U.S. borrowing limit, which is the debt ceiling, which basically stipulates that the government can only borrow up to, I don't know exactly what it is now, but let's say like $37 trillion. And beyond that, it becomes illegal for the government to do that, which means that we become very quickly in default of our obligations, which could cause a global financial crisis. Trump is saying, like, let's make sure that that second bomb is not on the table. Like, I don't want to have to deal with this at all during my administration. And I think he knows that if they don't deal with it now, he's going to have to figure out either A, how to deal with Democrats and give Democrats concessions to prevent the global economy from blowing up under his watch, or B, he's going to have to keep every Republican on board for a debt ceiling increase, which is going to be really, really hard. So I think it makes sense that Trump is like, let's just clear the decks on this right now. And I spoke to Democratic Senator Brian Schatz earlier this week. He was saying, like, I would love if Trump did this because we think that this is a huge problem too, and we want to be done with it. I think the thing that I find most inexplicable about this, or like haven't really wrapped my head around, is like the timing is bizarre. Like Trump was elected over a month ago, and we've known that the debt ceiling is going to be an issue this spring for 2 years. And if Trump had said to Mike Johnson, this goes back to sort of my point about the baffling like miscommunication here. If Trump had just said to Johnson, like, put this in the CR, I don't want to deal with the debt limit. I mean, maybe he did privately, and I just don't have the reporting chops to like figure that out. But like, my sense is that this is a new ask that Trump is now putting out there, and it reflects, I think. I mean, I spoke to someone who was at Mar-a-Lago yesterday who was saying that like, you guys in the media and you guys on the Hill, like you don't understand. Like Trump is like feeling himself. Like he is so confident. He thinks of this guy referred to Trump as like feeling like he's Charlemagne, where he's just like this like globe striding colossal figure, like which I mean historically like he might be remembered as a quite a significant president. So he's just like the CR and the omnibus and like this is like peasant stuff. Like I don't want to be like sucked into this boring mess. So like, and I get where like Trump won twice. Like he's just like, I don't need to spend my days appeasing people in Washington and dealing with this like mechanical stuff. But it also is like a huge problem for the functioning of the federal government if he's just going to like barely pay attention and the last minute like throw out complicated contradicting demands.
Yeah, here's my theory of what happened. So I see this morning Playbook is reporting, and it kind of fits with some of the people I spoke to yesterday. They're like, Trump, this wasn't on his radar basically at all. He didn't particularly care. Elon basically decides to pick a fight, him and Vivek on Doge on the CR. Trump wakes up to it. He gets kind of backed into a corner because enough people have now come out against the CR that it's not going to pass no matter what in terms of Republicans, including people like John Cornyn, right? Somebody in Senate leadership. So then Trump is like, okay, well, we got to do something new. Then a legislative aide down in Mar-a-Lago says, by the way, Mr. President-elect, you may not know this, but the debt ceiling is up in June. Trump hates a debt ceiling, doesn't want to deal with it. He especially doesn't want to deal with these Freedom Caucus guys. So he's like, okay, let's get it dusted now.
To be able to do his tax cut, too.
He needs his tax cut. So he sees this and he's like, we need to get this shit done. We can't deal with this during reconciliation. And so he puts it in right now. As you said, very, very little has changed, Jeff, in the last 4 years. I was definitely assured of more streamlined processes and others, but I'm getting a lot of rhymes. It hasn't been that long ago since I had to deal with this.
I do think one thing you put your finger on there that I think is really interesting is the idea that, Musk is operating as an independent power center here.
Yes.
Like that's kind of if that is true, that suggests that Musk's power doesn't just derive from Trump. And this notion that these are co-presidents and that Musk is like actually calling the shots here, I don't know. That's kind of what it sounds like to me, right? Like,
yeah, no.
Yeah.
You are right. That's correct. I don't think that so from what I've been able to tell, it definitely the Elon tweets, but especially the Vivek stuff attacking the CR, that's totally independent. That was never signed off on. Remember, a lot of these folks, they're not even in the same room. Trump is down in Mar-a-Lago. Elon is wherever, somewhere in the globe. Every once in a while pops up in the UK, San Francisco, et cetera. Vivek is here in Washington. None of these people are necessarily coordinating. Allegedly, there is a group chat with Mike Johnson, Vivek, and Elon in it. Somebody never raised the CR, apparently, in said group chat. And so I think there's a very real chance of a shutdown here. What do you think?
I mean, I think I'm ambivalent a little bit about sort of the substantive complaint being made here, because I do think you talk to, average people, and it's like, members of Congress can't read the bill before they vote on it. It's like 1,700 pages and nobody knows what's in it before they are expected to support it. It's full of things that have nothing to do with keeping the government open. Like those are, to be fair, I guess, to Musk and Ramaswamy, like that is a thing that I think strikes people as a broken process. And they're saying like it is time to end that broken process. At the same time, I mean, there is over 1 million government workers who are now at risk of having their Christmases and their families' Christmases completely ruined, not to mention all the private sector workers who depend on it. And also the things that are in here that are objectionable include disaster aid and farm aid that a lot of people think is important. And Musk circulated claims last night about the bill that are just patently false. I mean, he said, he cited a report that was saying that the bill includes $3 billion for the new Commander Stadium in Washington, D.C. That's just not true. He said that he circulated a report saying that the bill has $60 billion for Ukraine, like not true. So, I hear where they're coming from, but if every bit of government legislation is at risk of being mischaracterized as it has by Musk and Ramaswamy, as I think they did in maybe not Ramaswamy, but Musk did at least in this instance, it's going to be hard to pass anything of substance in the next 4 years.
Yeah, well, it seems to me like perhaps the miscalculation that Johnson made is that he correctly perceived that Trump more or less didn't care and had given him sort of free rein to negotiate what he needs to negotiate. He has a very narrow margin in the House in terms of House Republicans, knew he was going to have to rely on some Democrats. Obviously, Democrats also still control the Senate. So he struck the deal he needed to strike in order to, clear the deck in his language, get this taken care of, get the debt limit taken care of, and, live to fight another day and start fresh in the Trump administration. And the miscalculation was really not realizing you do kind of have this co-president situation. So it's not enough to have Donald Trump's buy-in. It's not enough for Donald Trump to be like, sure, whatever, go negotiate whatever you want to negotiate and just make sure that I can come in with the government funded and with the debt limit out of the way. He didn't realize, guess what? You need to also make sure that Elon's going to be cool with this. And that seems to me like where the real failure and miscalculation here was for Mike Johnson.
I think that's well put. And I think, based on what I'm hearing this morning and last night, like, Johnson could very well be toast.
It seems like it.
I agree.
He seems like his days are numbered.
But who would replace him is always the question. Who can pull this caucus? Who does have the support of the full caucus? And what are the demands on the future, potential speaker going to look like as well?
Yeah, it seems like Trump alone could save him at this point. I get Tom Emmer is the name that comes up a lot. I know you don't have to be a member of the House to be Speaker, so kind of opens up the possibilities.
Rand Paul just today, we're about to cover it, said, "Why not just make Elon Speaker of the House? Maybe it'd be easier, actually."
Yeah. He basically is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if he was, he would be probably like the most powerful speaker in history in a certain sense. Outside of the fact that the margin would be so narrow. How many seat margin do they have now coming into this
2
next session?
Right.
Especially with Trump pulled a few out of the House for his administration, Matt Gaetz resigning, so it'll take a while to fill that seat, et cetera. So it's extremely narrow. But I think when Elon says jump, the Republican caucus is pretty clear, says how high.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
That seems like the question I've had for the last year is, or the last few months, I guess, is, there are so many Republicans who resist some of the ambitious goals that Musk and Ramaswamy have set out. $2 trillion in spending cuts, revamping the DOD, cutting pork barrel spending out for this or that district. The list goes on and on, all these regulations that they want to cut. And then there's sort of like it's not really my lane, but sort of, Patel and, what Trump does with the DOJ and, what he does with the IRS, which, those are all questions. But this is, I think it's fair to say this is the first sustained barrage by Musk, his first real sort of flex, his first test of can you get congressional Republicans to sort of listen to you? And it's not entirely Musk, obviously. Like, conservatives in the House have been a problem for leadership for like over a decade now. So I don't want to say it's purely like sui generis from Musk. But I think by any standard, the test we saw, really the first test, which will set the course of the next few years, suggests that Musk is in charge and that there is no willingness in the Republican Party and ability to, maybe I'm repeating myself here, but to stand up to him and to stand out and put your head above the sand.
Yeah. Jeff, my last question for you is, Elon is like a fan of Javier Milei and sort of anarcho-capitalist. He's this very, somewhat doctrinaire libertarian outside of where he wants his own government goodies, etc. His ideology is not the same as what Trump has articulated to the country. I mean, Trump has never been like an austerity, Paul Ryan Republican. One of the reasons he's been so successful, for example, is pledging, I'm not going to touch Social Security and Medicare. Elon Musk would love to cut Social Security and Medicare. Probably the most clear-cut example of where there's a real divergence is Trump has been pretty consistently in favor of, a very aggressive regime of tariffs. Meanwhile, Elon was out tweeting praise for Javier Milei rolling back tariffs in his home country. So help people to understand. It's always tricky with Trump talking ideology because he doesn't have that firm of an ideology. I think Elon is a much more ideological, actually, figure. Where are some of the frictions between Elon's ideology and at least what Trump has articulated his ideology to be to the American public?
I think that is one of the most important questions that we're going to, see play out over the next few years. As you're saying, Krystal, Trump has, rose to power in 2016, explicitly saying that he would not touch Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid, arguably the three most important programs in the federal budget, provide health care and pensions for tens of millions of seniors and other, poor people and other people in this country. Now, I think in his second term, choose my words carefully here, I get the sense that Trump is softening on that a little bit. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is Trump has always said that he stands for eliminating waste and fraud and abuse in, say, Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid. It's really, though, of those three, Medicare is kind of the crucial one. There's so little waste in Social Security because, you're just sending checks to people for their retirement programs. Very straightforward. Medicare, though, is complicated, and there are things in Medicare that people that I do not think are sort of out to hurt grandma that can be sort of revamped or changed, or that there can be cost savings. I think what Trump seems to be suggesting to want to do to me, which I think is an interesting shift from his first term, and as you're suggesting, puts him more in line with Milei and Musk, is to say, actually, I'm going to propose changes or cuts to Medicare, but I will insist that this is just waste. And any dorky Washington Post reporter that suggests that this is Medicare cuts, mm-hmm. I'm just going to yell at and be like, you are lying about what I'm doing. I'm just doing reforms to Medicare that aren't touching the program. And adjudicating the question of if that's a cut, if that's slashing Medicare, is a sort of epistemological, like metaphysical question that is hard to get like a very straightforward answer to, because legitimate people can have legitimate different interpretations of what that means. But some of those, we'll have to see what he actually does. Some of those programs could, if cut, could lead to, less care for seniors. At the same time, there is waste in Medicare, and some of the things necessary to do that could just look like waste to, I think, a good faith person trying to reduce the federal budget, which is a complicated and nuanced picture, but one that I think will be impossible to write in a story without like millions of people being like, you're an idiot who is mischaracterizing things. But I think that is sort of the dynamic that's shaping up.
Welcome to our lives there, Jeff. All right, man. We appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Great to see you, Jeff. Happy holidays.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.